Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the JOANNA WHALEY podcast. We have a very intense and difficult conversation ahead of us today, but before we do that, we are going to invite you, my friends. You might be somebody out there who needs community. Maybe you need like a pastor, an online pastor. Well, I am volunteering as tribute for that one. You can go to patreon.com/JOANNA WHALEY right now, and for as little as $1.99 a month, you can have access to me and we can chat and I can walk with you through your journey of queerness and spirituality. Go to patreon.com/JOANNA WHALEY. That's patreon.com/JOANNA WHALEY and join a bunch of other queer people in their spiritual journey. Today, we will continue with another amazing episode with my friend Addie. Here we go. Can't get it out of my head. Can't get it out of my head. I will never be straight, but you say I'll be great if it's out of my head. Well, hello again, everyone. Happy Pride Month. Yes. We have been doing, if you're just joining us for the first time, I have my very best friend in the world, Adelynn Campbell, here in studio with me today.
Yeah.
And she's in town from San Diego. I'm like, you know what? You're going to freaking record podcast episods with me.
I must like you for coming from the warm weather.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, but it's super hot here in Michigan today. But I'm happy that she has joined us today. We're talking about something really, really kind of intense and really personal for a lot of people. If you're like me, I came out 2 years ago, and I think Addie, it was you said 8 years ago. And one of the unfortunate common things that we experience in the queer community is rejection from families. And families are such an important part of our lives. It's important to have people that you can rely on, that you can kind of, when the tire goes flat, somebody will be there to rescue you. That's happened to me way too many times. I have a lot of trauma with my car. Every time I get in my car, I'm like, good Lord, am I going to make it to point B? But I've had this kind of backdrop of family, and but there's been moments. I do not have a Tesla. Somebody just asked me if I have a Tesla. No, I don't.
Doesn't pay that well.
No, I don't get paid that much money. But the reality is that I've experienced in my journey rejection from my family in certain aspects. Now, for the most part, I've had a generally like very supportive family, but there's been pockets of my family and even people that I'm really close to that have rejected me. And that was really painful to work through, like really painful. And I don't know about you, but I've just wrestled at times with like, I wish this person close to me would get it. I wish this person close to me would understand like what their rejection of me means. Especially and a lot of people experience things like where, when you're a little kid and you're crawling around in a diaper, you're being a little kid and you're playing at the park and your kids, you say to your kids like, I'll love you no matter what. I'll love you forever.
I heard that all the time as a kid.
Yeah, like I'll love you forever. Nothing would ever stop my love for you. But then... But what we didn't realize is that there's fine print.
Gotta read the fine print.
And sadly, there's families who have a lot of fine print when it comes to love. And what I've experienced is when little kids are told by their parents, I'll love you no matter what, especially if they come from high control religious backgrounds, there's a lot of fine print. In fact, it contains 66 books of it. It is filled. It's books upon books.
Their interpretation
yes.
of it, of those 66 books.
Yes. And so, I don't know, I have wrestled with this as a parent, as someone, and I've asked myself many times, is there fine print to my love? And I have to do like almost an inventory at times, because for those listening to this podcast or those who are watching live, I can guarantee you there's tons of people watching and listening right now whose families don't talk to them because of who they are and who they love.
And unfortunately, when that trust is broken, it doesn't just affect the child and their family, it affects the child and their relationship to everyone they're going to meet in their life in the future.
Right.
And for me, as a child that was rejected for being a trans woman, I have a hard time trusting other people.
Yeah.
I think you, being a good friend of mine, were probably one of the first people that I trusted, that no matter what I said or thought or believed, it wasn't really going to change our relationship.
Yeah, and that's what it should be, right? Like, that's what it should be. We should be able to be honest with who we are in with the people who we're the closest to, and not fear losing everything because of that honesty. But that's the queer experience. I said this last week, but a lot of this rejection that we experience in the queer community is not an anomaly. It is a feature. It is a feature of queerness to be rejected by people. And when it comes from your family, it's even worse. But I think it's important that we talk about, like, why? Like, why is it important? Like, how does the family... There's this thing called family systems theory, right? This thing called family systems theory. And it really... It focuses in on, like, the psyche of a person and how those who are closest to you inform that. And I know, like, with mental health providers, it's really become very important to understand family systems theory, because you could be talking with somebody, like, let's talk about trolls for a minute. Let's talk about the people that get on TikTok comment sections or Facebook comment sections, and they just throw out wild things about queer people. Well, my question is, and this is why I wrestle against myself with this idea of original sin, right? I'm not somebody who believes in original sin, and you being somebody who looks at more Catholic theology, you may have more. Yeah, you may have more of a framework of original sin than I do, but, like, my question is, like, where along the path did someone learn in their family system to treat people like that? And so, you might be seeing some sort of behavior, but the question is asked, like, where is that coming from? But Christianity really ran with family systems theory in, like, they took the ball and put it in their own goal for some reason. They, like, put the puck in their own, the puck or the ball, sports ball. They, like, put it in the wrong goal, and have run with, like, really enmeshed it with, like, psychodynamic theories, and have done a lot of damage, I believe, by using really ill-informed Christian ideas and trying to, like, create this pseudoscience with it.
And if there's one thing that a listener would take away from all of that, I think the biggest thing is that what someone is saying to you, how someone is reacting to you, says way more about them than it does you. And so often we take those feelings on. I do that all the time. I take those feelings on. Right. But it's really good to practice building that emotional space between you and a parent, or between you and someone who's
and I think it is important too for us to understand.
I start to think back to some of the stuff we've heard, like, with
when we start hearing, like, family systems theory, and people, especially in faith-based communities, try to start blaming things on parental issues, or they start trying to blame it on something that went wrong, or trying to find something inappropriate that happened. I think what we start to see is those parents who have that ideal of what their household was supposed to look like. And when they see the dream, when they see the dream dwindling away, I feel like sometimes parents get really fearful of what the whole world's going to see if that dream falls apart.
I've been telling our listeners that what they're saying doesn't apply. Like, it's not you, it's them. But to flip it around on our parents out there who are having troubles accepting their LGBT kids, also your parenting didn't create an LGBT kid.
Oh my gosh. Please, if you're listening to this and you are, let's say your kid forwarded this podcast to you. They're like, Dad, listen to this.
I've been known to do it.
Yes. Dad, listen to this. Mom, Dad, parent, whoever you are, you need to hear. You did not do anything to make your kid queer. Your kid just is queer. Okay?
No
you didn't do anything wrong.
Make your kid queer.
Yes, you didn't do anything wrong. And I think that's really, really important for us to understand. But I mean, and I think that, family rejection, like when it's identified, like it can really create a lot of psychological damage.
I mean, have you watched Lion King?
Oh yeah.
Simba was messed up.
Yeah, he's like eating bugs. He's like rolling around like he's
seeing his dad in the skies. I mean, it gets rough for a moment before he comes
what
back.
was in those bugs, you think?
Definitely not sugar.
Not sugar. I love it. But like, I think the reality is that, and it's proven, I believe there was a Trevor Project survey done in 2019 that said it found that trans people who have family support report the same rates of mental illness as their cisgender counterparts. I mean, let me say that again. Transgender youth who have support from their parents, it has been found that they have the exact same rates of mental illness as everyone else in the world. And when people say all the time, trans people are just depressed because they're trans.
Or that they regretted the things they did to transition.
Exactly. No, the reason that a lot of queer people are having an issue is because of family rejection, and it has to be addressed. This has to be addressed. Parents, like, if you made a promise to your kid, it's time to, sorry for the term, it's time to man up. Sorry to use such a gendered term, but like,
it's the only one they understand.
You need to man up to your promise and fulfill the damn promise. Like, that is what you need to do. That is your role. You are our parent, and you have no other option than to love your child. I don't care what your child has done or who they love.
And then you got parents that just like collect all of the little queer babies and bring them in.
Exactly. So let's talk about chosen family for a minute with the couple minutes we have left on this segment. You have some great chosen family. Mm-hmm. I've got some great chosen family. What does chosen family mean, and how does it help people?
Yeah, chosen family is what we use in the queer community to describe people that are not related by blood, mm-hmm. but are in every other way family. These are people that invite us into their homes for holidays. They're the people that help us move.
Yeah.
They're those people when your tire gets flat or your axle falls off and they have to rescue you on the highway.
Yeah.
That didn't happen to you.
It has happened to me many times. Please send me a car. Somebody gift me a car.
Maybe a
that
Tesla.
Works.
Just Tesla,
Yeah. If Elon is listening to get mad right now at queer people, Elon, just,
Tesla.
Gift a trans person a car and see how that helps your heart. Anyways. My chosen sister's coming over to the house tonight, and she's been with me through thick and thin, and I think that's the thing. They actually fulfill the promises of people that failed on theirs.
And then we get the awesome responsibility to also fill those familial promises back to our chosen family, because that is a big part of life.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Addie, I'm really happy you're here. On the other side of this music and the other side of the commercial break, we're going to attempt to take questions and talk about chosen family with our live audiences. We would love for you to join us. We'll be right back after this commercial break. Hey friends, it seems like everyone and their mom has a podcast these days, and everyone and their mom wants you to join their Patreon. So why on earth would you join my Patreon? Here's why. Our Patreon community is a little bit different because we are building a community of LGBTQ people and allies who need spiritual support. Let's be honest, many of my listeners may have a lot of distrust with clergy, and you need a place to talk safely with someone like me, a former pastor who is a trans woman. And we can really dive into some of the nitty-gritty of your experience. Go to patreon.com/JOANNA WHALEY and join a whole community of people right now. That's patreon.com/JOANNA WHALEY. We would love to see you there. All right, everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Sam, my dear friend who's becoming a regular here. I love this. I think we need to just have you on. What's going on, my friend?
Well, hello. This topic is so near and dear to me.
Yeah.
Especially when you said the dream dwindling away. So when I was in grad school, I was going to do a research project on rejection of queer kids by their parents.
Yeah.
So I started to do a lot of research about this. And definitely it applies to this topic, especially the dream dwindling away. I found in the research that it seems like when parents see their kids following a different path than they ascribed for them, they have their own mourning process and their own coming out process of realizing, well, shoot, I thought I had all these grandkids, and they don't know about surrogacy. They don't know about all the multitude of ways that we can have families or be amazing uncles and aunts. They don't know about this, and they only know their own perspective. And a lot of times they have different homophobia and queerphobia that's been instilled in them that they're now having to reconcile with. And so it's so sad to read all of that.
That's so true. And Sam, I think it's important, sometimes we see that, like you said, they don't know about surrogacy. They don't understand the idea that queer people can adopt. And I think a lot of that comes from if you have a family that's inside of a religious echo chamber, you begin to start hearing things like, well, a guy and a guy can't have kids. You know what I'm saying? You you're just hearing really uneducated stuff coming out of those camps, but it's because you're in echo chambers and you haven't actually listened or talked to a queer person or an ally. And I think that is really, really true. I sometimes I forget that people might just be in an environment that they just aren't aware of how the dream doesn't have to die because of who someone loves.
Exactly. I also saw in the research that really surprised me, it seemed like the more gender conforming and normative the kid is, the more likely the parent is to accept them. And so that just really highlighted to me the importance of the queer community banding together and saying, we love our trans siblings because we recognize that they are definitely getting the bad end of the stick. And we're progressing because they've been left behind, and that's just not right.
You said something that really resonates with me. My friend Addie, who's here in studio, she's been out for 8 years. I've been out for 2 years now, and I can tell you 2 years in now, because I look more feminine and I look more female. In the beginning, it was really hard. I remember times of having to educate and really work through things because I wasn't quite looking, it sounds terrible, but looking the part in a sense, and so if that's what I understood from what you were saying, the more gender conforming they are, even if they transition, is that what you're saying?
Well, it was all sorts, anything running the gamut, even if it was a child who was lesbian, if she still presented more femme, then her parents were more likely to not reject her. And so it didn't matter what letter of the alphabet you were experiencing. The more heteronormative, the more cisnormative you were, the safer you were from your parents rejecting you. And unfortunately, the responsibility was on the children to educate their parents. And I thought that was so sad.
Yeah, and it really shines a light into our non-binary friends, gender non-conforming friends who do not fit any of those molds. And so it is challenging. I have a lot of non-binary friends who have a lot of struggles with family, and that makes a lot of sense to me. So Sam, when the heck am I going to have you as a guest on this show?
Whenever you ask, my dear. It's just, this topic is something I researched, and I just had to say, like, thank you for addressing it. It is so important that we talk about.
It really is. So Sam, thank you so much for being here. You have become a fast friend through just the through TikTok questions, and that's how I've known Sam for a while through another friend, and then we got connected here. So that was really cool. So cool. Yeah. So we do have some questions on this via text. If you are somebody who wants to chime in on Facebook comments, or if you have questions, you can request to join the conversation. I have a text message question here, and in regards to this. This is from Jason in Madison, Wisconsin. Says, "Hi there. I heard about your podcast topic about being LGBTQ and dealing with family. How do you manage the emotional side of being rejected when they blame their rejection on Jesus?"
Yeah.
Wow.
That doesn't apply to my situation.
Yeah. I have a professor in my seminary who says, like, steward your revelation, steward your, like, what you share. And I don't know how much you want to share, because I know, and I'm not airing out my friend's laundry here, but she's been really going through it, and that has been a difficult part of dealing with parental, especially when it's in the name of Jesus. That's where it gets really challenging.
Yeah, so I think from my upbringing, my parents see it as a positive thing to not accept your gender identity. And it's really hard to sort of set up boundaries and negotiate with someone that's like, no, God wants me to act like this, or God wants me to not accept your pronouns and not call you by my name because that's what the Bible commands of me. And because I'm doing it, I'm sort of... I'm
like winning here.
Exactly. And you're the one that's walking away. And that's another thing. If you have parents that believe that they're on high ground, spiritual high ground, they're going to always see it as you are walking away.
Yeah.
But what I like to say to myself is that boundaries are never enforced by others. They're always enforced by you. And so to answer the question, how do I heal emotionally? It's going to take space and time.
Yeah.
Those are the only two things. And I made the mistake of trying to reconnect with my parents, thinking this time would be different. They're going to change. They might, but I had to put in the boundaries and say, until that time happens, I'm going to start living my own life.
Yeah. I remember when I was working, I was like a youth pastor, and the whole, like, I don't know if anybody in youth group out there, I don't know. But there was the whole, like, God told me to break up with you thing, It was like when you play the God card, it's like, well, what do I do with that? Like what do I do now that you're, like, blaming God?
That's what Job's friends do, and he tells them to leave. Stop talking to him.
So here's a question I have, like, where's the line? Where do you say, you know what, like, I've given you the opportunities. I mean, I think people should be really slow to go no contact unless it's really, really dangerous. That's my conviction. Now, like, I don't speak for the whole queer community on that. But, like, what I want to say is, like, where is the line? At what point is it okay to go no contact?
I think it's whenever the situations are perpetuating the trauma or rejection. So for me, like I said, it took a long time to go no contact. I didn't just go no contact overnight, but it was the multiple crossings of the boundaries that I had set in a very kind way.
Right. And I think also something you did that was beautiful was you gave a path for the family to connect with you, but it was through a very detailed process. So if they wanted to make the effort to, like you would see that they wanted to try to do it proper, they wanted to try to reconcile by going through a specific process. And I thought that was really beautiful. So yeah, it's so hard. We have another text message question here. Ooh, you might like this one. I see the word Catholic in here, so let's see. This is Emily from Palm Springs, Florida, asked, "Hi, I'm curious what I should expect from my parent, or from coming out to parents who are Catholic, but also seem not to follow religion closely. My sister wants to come out to them, but we aren't sure how they're going to take it." Wow.
Yeah, this Easter I was supposed to be confirmed in the Catholic Church. That was put on hold because I'm trans.
Yeah.
And that was very sad. However, it hasn't stopped me from having my own convictions and practicing my Catholic faith.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I grew up in a conservative, reformed environment. Mm-hmm. Those environments are full of Christians who often believe that we have the truth and everyone else is a little bit more off or way off, and if you're Catholic you're definitely off. That's how I was raised.
Sure. Yeah.
What I found in Catholic communities myself as I've been on this journey is that there are a lot of parents that are way more open and accepting, especially the way she's describing them is maybe they're not as conservative.
Exactly. And I grew up in a really Catholic, like very, very Catholic family. And you were just at a family barbecue with my family yesterday. And my family, very, very devout Catholic. My grandma, like the most Catholic than the freaking Pope, I think. Because my grandma went to she went to Mass 7 days a week. Like, she went every single day. She was like a Eucharistic minister in the hospital. My grandpa was he was like a choir director in the church. Like, they were very Catholic. But they were also really affirming. Mm-hmm. They were fighting our parish all the time for LGBTQ rights. It was crazy to watch that. So I'll say, and all of my uncles are very accepting of my transition. They have been loving and supportive and say, hey, we're proud of you. So I would say that no two Catholics are the same. Yeah.
What do we Catholic means universal. There is a huge church out there, and there are people, and I know this. I have monk friends. I have priest friends. Yeah. I have friends that are in the Catholic community that have been very empathetic and also very supportive of me and very protective of me.
Exactly. If you are somebody who's watching live at TikTok at JOANNA WHALEY Music, you're welcome to join the conversation. If you want to be respectful and you're over 18, we'd love to have you on the show. If you're on Facebook, leave us a comment, send us a text. And if you're listening to this show at any other time, you can go to joannawhaley.com/live and you can send us a voicemail. And that's where most of these text messages come from, people going to the website. Let's take, I don't see any calls at the moment, so I'm going to take one. And if you listen to this podcast and you haven't joined Patreon as a paid subscriber, you can actually, after we record, we actually keep the recording going and we just have conversations with people on TikTok live, and it gets really fun. And sometimes it gets really wild. We'd love to have you there. We're going to have to answer this one really fast. You ready? Uh-huh. Hey, I've been reading about LGBTQ issues lately. How can I ask how you coped with family rejection when you came out? Let's maybe one sentence how you coped with it.
I cried a lot and I talked to a lot of people.
Yes. Therapy. I'm just going to answer it with one word.
A lot of therapy.
A lot of therapy. Just make sure you're in a therapist. And I think that therapy is a great thing for LGBTQ people. Every person in general should be in therapy, but especially if you're queer, be in therapy. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. We will see you tomorrow for another episode of the podcast. And go. Be yourself. And know that you can have access to faith. This has been a production of Whaley Media. Thanks for being here. We'll see you tomorrow. I hate it all that I could see. Can't get it out of my